pass their whatever on to you, and you don't have to fight with your siblings about it. The trust helps with that. So if you've got a house with your parents in it, grandparents in it, whatever, you put all of their assets into the trust and then set yourself up as a benefit as a successor beneficiary. They're in there as the primary beneficiary, and they might be the revocable trustees, but then you get set up as the second trustee. So when they pass, you take over, but now it's an irrevocable trust. Anything that's in there is in there. Nothing comes out that's not identified and allowed to come out on the trust. But then at the same time, anything you want to add to the trust based on the terms and conditions of the trust can be added to the trust. So you can put all of your stuff into the trust. And then anybody else that is set as a successor beneficiary to you can get it from you. And that means now grandma's house got willed to you, and your house now gets willed to whatever kids that you wanted to have because they're identified as so and so can have this, so and so can have that, blah, blah, blah. And that sets the dynamic. And then, as I explained earlier today, I was like, if you think about it, if you had kids or if you had grandkids and you have assets, you put everything into the trust. You want the trust to generate its own revenue so that the trust can pay for the house. Whether it's the mortgage or the taxes, you want the trust to pay for the house. When nobody's living in the house, the trust has to pay for the maintenance of the house. Make sure the grass is cut and everything like that because you don't want the house to fall apart while nobody's in it. Then, if it's not being used by a successor of the trust, it should be used as rental property to generate income for the trust. That way, the trust can pay for itself. It wants to be because the third party that's operating the trust gets 1 to 2% of the value of the trust. So if there's a $500,000 worth of stuff in the trust, they're getting 1% of that every year. You got $1 million worth of stuff in the trust. That's $100,000 a year that they're getting out of that trust, which means 100 to $200,000 a year that they're getting out of that trust. That means that you have to have a couple $100,000 in the trust to pay the second person to manage the trust, depending on how difficult the trust is. So you want to make sure that if you set all this stuff up, then you're perfectly capable of adding the business, adding the cars, adding the houses, adding this, adding that. And if you're in a situation where you're in a relationship, you're getting married and all of this other stuff, you have contracts that says that the trust is excluded from seizure. You have contracts that says even in the midst of infidelity and abuse and all of this other stuff, it is uh, uh, um, exempt from seizure, all of these other things. You got to put all of these conditions in there and protect your assets. The other thing it does, it prevents you from getting got in a lawsuit, then you're losing all your stuff. Because if you get hit in a lawsuit and you don't own nothing, they can't take nothing from you. Your house is still there, you know? So he said, then amendment to the amendment. Yes. The amendment to the amendment to the addendum, which is what we have with the Constitution. The what 1924-75 amendments to the Constitution. All of these amendments is additional clarification to the original uh, um, document, but it sets a precedent that the last document plays into the second document, plays into the next document, which plays into the current document that we're exercising in the courtroom. And that's really what it was all about. But when I talked about that, then I talked about how, she's got kids, her kids got kids. And like, bro, if you're living in the house, your mom passed, and then you passed, if you don't have a structure set up, if he's got his own house, he don't need your house. If somebody's not taking care of the house until he moves into your house, the house runs down. So if you set up a trust where it is a self-sustainable entity, even if your son don't use the house, if your son's kids want to come and use grandma's house, they written into the trust to be able to do that. They can walk right in. Utilities is operating, everything is up and going, grass is cut. All you got to do is just unpack your bags like an Airbnb or a timeshare. That's a fully properly structured trust. But it also allocates your resources, who gets what and how much. You can have a trust where each person gets an equal distribution, but you can also have a max amount where they can get a certain percentage up to this much each person gets. But in order for you to make sure that if there's 100 people on this trust, that there's enough money to go around, you have to be able to make sure that the trust is able to generate revenue. So all of that stuff boils down to what we're going to be talking about today about offshore bank accounts, because there's offshore trusts that you can do, non-residential trusts that you can do. that will piggyback off of these offshore bank accounts, which gives you the capabilities to have money that is not being chased down by the U.S. government, but it also gives you a little bit more financial privacy. So throughout the week, we give you guys so much information to help you guys be more successful, and that is the encouragement of doing your research and getting more stuff done. He says, so trust him and knows what he is talking about. He said, so Michael tell you, trust me. He knows I know that I know what I'm talking about. He knows that I know what I'm talking about. And if you're watching membership, you see so much information being dropped in there, you can verify it. And what I ask you to do is just don't just take my word for it. Take the information that I gave you and do your research on it. Once you stack up enough information for yourself where you're satisfied to take action, then you can schedule an appointment with a CPA or a financial advisor, or a tax lawyer, or a trust lawyer, or an estate lawyer, or whatever the case may be. And instead of you spending 3 or 4 hours having somebody explain to you all the stuff I told you for free, you have a fixed game plan that you're willing to execute, and you're going to spend 15 minutes showing it to that legal advisor, and then that legal advisor is going to give you the finishing touches of your document. And within that 1 hour consultation, everything that you need is taken care of. And that's so much easier than spending hundreds of thousands of dollars asking questions and not knowing what to ask. And you're sitting there, they're telling you so many things to impress you about their skill set, but they're not telling you what the hell you need to know for you to be successful. You're paying by the hour to listen to them talk. You know what I mean? So I give you all of this information so that y'all can be better successful and better prepared, because in that dynamic, you will find yourself making more money, saving more money, investing more money, and building a better lifestyle. We're going to be talking about coming soon. Is it better to rent or buy? Because somebody did ask me that question last week. Um, what was the opportunity cost of buying versus renting? Like, how long do you own the house before you start experiencing a return? A house is not like a car. A car is a depreciating asset that you potentially utilize for transportation to get to and from work or to and from your entertainment. You dump a bunch of money into your car so that you can get further distances that you can't get on your feet. It's financial loss. You're not profiting off of the car. But the opportunity cost difference between riding in a car versus riding in a cab or taking an Uber or a Lyft, because a cab costs more than an Uber or a Lyft. But the frequency of use of an Uber or a Lyft might cost more than a rental car, and a rental car might cost more than your personal vehicle if your personal vehicle is being used more often and has, better mileage or whatever, or lower maintenance costs. So it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish, right? But when you start talking about a house is way different. You buy a house that's undervalued, where the after repair value is significantly high, say like $150,000 house that's actually appraised at like $205,000. A house of that magnitude has like $60,000 worth of equity, $65,000 worth of equity on paper, but they typically go no higher than like 80% uh, for the after repair value. 80% for the after repair value, if you bought the house at about $145,000, $150,000, puts about $19,000 worth of equity into the house as soon as you buy it. And then however much you put down on a mortgage after they finish taking their cut for interest. You might find yourself with $40,000 worth of equity in your house if you were able to add an extra $20,000 worth of extra money on your principal after they've taken out their money for interest, which allows you to be able to take a home equity loan out on a house for $40,000 and buy you a car or repair the roof or repaint the house or do the yard or whatever the case may be. All of that stuff you factor in when you're taking out that type of loan. Now, granted, when you take out that loan, you're going to have a larger monthly payment because you're going to go from little or nothing to all of this, and it's still going to be over that 30-year loan period. But the fact is that if you can afford it, now you have a block of capital somewhere. That equity is benefits that your apartment doesn't have. But the other thing is, yeah, subprime loans. The other thing is that if you are renting and you're renting at a premium, We're going to get into these loans in just a second, but if you're renting and you're renting at a premium, if you find a house in a lower valued neighborhood, not a lower social status neighborhood, because you have like places like Atlanta, Florida, California that are expensive, but then you have rural areas like in Wisconsin or Illinois that's lower in value. You have more land for your dollar, more acreage. You have more square feet per house for the same price that you would have somewhere else. So like a 2,500 square foot house in Wisconsin might be way cheaper than a 500 or 700 square foot apartment in California. So when we talk about lower neighborhoods, we're not talking about like going from middle class to crime rate neighborhood. We're talking about going from an overpriced real estate to a underpriced real estate due to the low population, low utilization of the neighborhood. All the real estate is cheap. Not too many turnovers are happening because everybody buys and holds. Very few people sell. Usually it's a divorce or somebody dies that a property goes up for sale. You're going to have a slower real estate market, which means you're going to have lower houses that have higher value. Now, if you can find yourself a house that after closing cost you $1,000 a month for your mortgage, and that's a 30-year fixed mortgage. If you were renting an apartment that, let's say, dollar for dollar, would have been $1,000 per month for your apartment. Not likely. Usually apartments are like 12 or 1,300. But let's say for the sake of that it is $1,000 a month. So you're equal transition over. The first improvement you're going to have is that the size of the apartment is going to be far smaller than the size of the house. $1,000 a month house on a mortgage might be a four, 3 or 4 bedroom house, right? A $1,000 a month apartment might be a 1 bedroom apartment. A 1 bedroom apartment might be a 650 square foot apartment, whereas that 3 bedroom apartment might be that 3 bedroom house might be a 1,500 square foot house for $100 a month, or in some areas it could be bigger than that. Now, the other thing that you have to take into consideration is every year there's about a 4% increase on your rent. Your mortgage is 30 years fixed rate. There's no increase. You're going to be paying $1,000 a month in 30 years. But if there's a 4% increase every year, you're likely to see, on average, at least $100 a month increase on your rent every year. So the first year, you're going to see a $1,200 increase. The second year, you're going to see another $1,200 increase. The third year, you're going to see another $1,200 increase. Likely, over the course of 20 years of staying at the same address, your rent would likely double. Your mortgage would stay the same. So when they ask me the question, like, which one? I'm like, off the cuff, bro. Because of the financial opportunities you have with the house, it is easy to say that owning a house is cheaper than owning um, uh, an apartment or possessing an apartment. But it just really requires for us to really consider it. A lot of people try to talk you into rental properties because there's less responsibility. If you lazy as fuck and you don't want to fix nothing, yeah, get you an apartment. You ain't got to cut no grass, you ain't got to paint nothing, you ain't got to fix shit. If something breaks, you call a repairman and let them know, they come and take care of it. But now you got rules. You can't smoke weed in the house, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't make too much noise, you got to fight for parking unless you pay extra money for specific parking. The location will determine what your rent will be, but the location will also determine what your mortgage will be. You gain no equity but with rent, but it makes sense in many situations. You gain absolutely no equity with rent, and the only time it makes sense is when you have bad credit, bad payment history, and you cannot qualify for a loan. That's when it makes sense. Option B is when you're lazy as fuck. You don't want to fix nothing. You don't want to be responsible for nothing. You want to operate on autopilot. You will just rent for the sake of renting. But if you can get a loan, it is fiscally more beneficial to you to own your own shit. because ultimately, if you refinance the house, especially if you're overpaying on the house and you end up refinancing the house and stretching it out for another X number of years, bring the notes down. You can find yourself overpaying on the house and then refinance that bad boy and stretch the loan out and go from paying $1,000 a month to paying $400. Yeah, that loan's still sitting there for eternity, but I mean, it only matters. Uh, Special shout out to Nicole, Detroit, Michigan, in the house. It only matters when you're trying to finish the loan, or it matters when you can't afford to pay the loan. That's going to be the difference. But you get forced on about as quick as you get evicted when you start talking about non-payments. So as long as you have constant money coming in, it's really which one is more beneficial: the lack of responsibility or the extra equity and extra options that you have to purchase a house. So yeah, we cover a lot of these things on the show on a regular basis, and the objective is to get you guys to really think outside of the box. Like Michael, you like renting. I don't like renting. Fucking hate renting, bro. I hate renting. First problem I have is sharing parking. If I have understanding with my neighbors, don't park where I put my car. Whenever I leave, I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna put it where I was putting it. I don't have a problem. But if I got to battle with my neighbors about where I put my car, that's a problem. I won't have that problem in my own yard. I won't have that problem in my own house, right? So, um, the prices of home flats. What's your thought? Flats in Detroit. That flats are like apartments. They're probably a little bit larger, but the fact is that it's still the same dynamic. If you own your own shit, you got guaranteed parking. You know. Oh, you love to have renters. I love to have renters too. I don't like to be a renter. I hate the idea of being at the bottom. I want to be on top. Like anything outside of the bedroom, I expect myself to be on top. You know what I mean? It's the alpha expectation. I mean, it's more like a sigma expectation, really, when I think about it, because uh, everything I talk to you guys about, while we always talk about how it impacts your money and how you can benefit with it, you just change the way you make decisions. I always talk to you guys about things that, if you do it correctly, you can scale it. Scaling it means that you can start it up and run it at first, but then you can automate it, either using AI or hiring people to run it. And then you can find yourself in a position where everything happens on your behalf. By the time you can afford an accountant, you actually raised enough money to pay for the damn accountant. She said, I hate the housing here. I would never buy a home in Detroit. Now, Nicole, would you rent in Detroit over owning a house in Detroit? Or do you just not like the culture of Detroit? Or you just don't like the building structure of the houses in Detroit? Because if you live in Detroit, you rent in Detroit and you're paying more money per square foot for renting than what you pay for owning. Even if you owned a house in Detroit, just enough to save up enough money to move out of Detroit and then use that Detroit house as a rental property, you, you know, oh, the building structure. Yeah, building structure. He said the more doors, the happier you'll be. So hire on-site managers. Well, you only hire on-site managers when you have an apartment complex. If you're buying single-family homes and you're expanding your real estate portfolio by buying single-family homes one house at a time, you're going to have a you're going to buy a what was I thinking before I read what you read? He said Detroit is a mess. I had to think about that. Are they? They are infested with a lot of big businesses that are trying to buy them out. But what I was saying was is that if you're buying them house by house, you would have to buy or not buy, but pay a management company to go around to all of your properties and maintenance it. So it is not an on-site real estate management company. She said, the water is horrible here too, so is the food. What? I don't. I've never been to Detroit. I I drink bottled water and I drink coffee, so I don't know how the water is. Last time, it was I think 6 months before the last time I had water in this state. Um, what happened was somebody had got thrown into the pipes in the water reservoir, and it got all over the news that they had found bodies in the pipes, and they were trying to get those bodies out of the pipes, and they said don't drink the water. And this was like back in 2014, and I had been here since 2005. And a few months before that, I was just like too lazy to go get up and go to the sink and get water out of the sink. I just grab a bottle of water out of the fridge and do what I do. Not to mention, I spent a lot of time at work. But when I found out that, because I was working at a fast food restaurant at that time, I found out that the liquid from the drink machine is faucet water, it's tap water. It's directly from the city going straight into the cold drink dispenser. And then when you get the cold drink, it is not actually a separate entity from the regular water fountain. So what happened was I was like, wait, they said we're not supposed to drink the water, so we're not supposed to serve anything that has city water in it. And our drink dispensers produce drinks using city water and carbonation. I'm like, bro, we're not supposed to serve this. So I was like, fuck that. And after that year, I had never touched faucet water anywhere in the world. So I have not. I don't know what tap water really tastes like unless I get some ice cubes from an ice machine that just so happens to have come from some tap water. But my Samsung refrigerator has water purifiers on it, so I ain't really trying to mess with that neither. You know, and I change that water purifier out every other month because that Detroit Land Bank lets you rehab houses for cheap. I've looked into it. Oh yeah. If the money is right, you can find yourself in a position where you can benefit from turning that into a rental property, even if you don't want to live there. The first home ran down duplex. That's what you get. You get it. You get something that got some character. It needs a little bit of work. You get that. You rehab it. You're good to go. Because truth be told, you put like $50,000 into most places, most structures that are ready to move in. You put $50,000 into remodeling it, and I can guarantee you that it is. It costs about $10,000 per week to remodel a house. That's the work to expense cost. And if you're spending $50,000, it's 5 weeks of rehabilitation, and now the house is worth the higher after repair value. So if you decided that you wanted to take like $10,000 a year and do some minor changes on your house, paint the outside, update a lot of the windows, stuff to that effect, do the landscaping in the yard, update all of that stuff, change out, you know what I mean? Then you find yourself in a position where your house keeps going up in value. But if you fix your apartment, if you fixing the cabinets and fixing the doors and changing out the carpet and upgrading things and painting the walls and all of this shit, if you get your security deposit, you lucky. But if the landlord do an inspection and find that your house is in better quality than what it was before you moved in, there's a strong possibility they'll raise the rent on it. And you also can violate your lease by doing too many repairs in your apartment because it is the landlord's responsibility to change the structure of the property. Like I said, you never visited Detroit, you never be to a three world third world country. No, I ain't never gone to a third world country. that's that's the next on my list. So what you think of the new Resident Evil 9? I know this is off topic. I thought Resident Evil was done. But if that fine behind girl from Resident Evil is in the next Resident Evil, because I know that they kind of set it up where the next generation can kind of take over. The girl from the last Resident Evil with the long hair and stuff, that was the I guess the daughter of the clone or whatever the case may be, and they're like running it back, bro. That I'll watch it. I'll watch it. Even the Fast and the Furious franchise, I'll watch it. The story has gone from cars to action. I used to watch it because the Fast and Furious was all about cars racing all over the place. There was almost no story. It was just a bunch of expensive cars doing stunts all over the place. And I loved it. Now there's a whole story where there's very little car involvement. Because I'm a big fan of it. So when it comes down to Resident Evil, yeah, I see myself um action packed on the Resident Evil scenario, especially 3D. Yeah, if the bones are good, that's what you want to do, Mike. You want to buy it when the bones are good. That's like the only time something old, besides a man, has value. It's a house. Because if it's old and the bones are good, then you can buy it, rehab it, and then it's worth more. You find an old man, his bones are good. You get involved with him and turn a profit. Everything else is depreciation in value. The older it gets, the less value it has. Sorry, ladies. Truth is, it is what it is, and it's not to take shots. It is what it is. Women's value starts off when they're young, and the older they get, the lower the value. A car, the newer it is, the lower the value. Food, the fresher it is. The older the food gets, the lower the value. That's what it is. Steven says, I've never seen all the Fast and Furious movies. They were on Tubi, and I caught a few of them. You slip it, bro. I caught every single one of them. Some of them were even caught on Netflix. I caught every single one of them. What is considered good bones to buying a house? It is a house that doesn't have termites, doesn't have a cracked foundation, does not have holes and rips in the walls, doesn't have water damage, doesn't have fire damage, doesn't have flood damage. Um, um, that's some of the fundamentals that you're looking for. Uh, Typically, a brick house is a really good one that's got a good, strong foundation to it. But if you're doing a wooden house, typically the ones that are built between the 60s and the 20s are really good houses to go and grab because they use better quality materials. And then you can just like change out the siding and all that other stuff on the house, and then make the changes like from the inside out. You can take out a good floor plan um, that does have a little bit of fire damage on the second floor, and you can replace all of the fire damage, which is like 75% of a ground up construction. But if it's got enough stability in there from everywhere else, it'll rock. It'll rock, and then you won't have any issues. You said the foundation, the roof. Yeah, the roof is important too. A good sturdy roof, no leaks. These days we have central air and heat, so the HVAC system has to be functional. If it's not functional, the seller has to fix it. Or really take a lot of money off the house. You know, Drywall easy to replace. Yeah, and if it's not drywall, if it's hardwood or laminate, you want to be it's got to be uh, easy to maintain or reasonably doable to maintain. It's got to be considered like light duty repairs. I said light duty repairs. Do one room at a time. Yeah. Well, you could do one room at a time if you're living there. That is a good recommendation. You can do one room at a time, especially if you have extra rooms. The room that's being designed can be done while everybody else is living in the other room. But like I said, you can also set it up where it's like a 5 week process. So this month, y'all coming to make changes. You could set yourself a vacation, leave the keys to the house, go out of the country for 60 days. They're going to be fixing the house for 5 weeks. So that's about 45 days. By the time you come back, it should be a brand new house. And then you got some extra equity. That is the extra equity because after the house is repaired, then you're looking at the reappraisal of the house, which if you're getting the tax exemption on the house, and we've been talking about real estate for an hour, and we're supposed to talk about offshore banking, but if we were doing the appraisal of the house, we wouldn't do an appraisal of the house if we're doing the tax exemption where they're gonna freeze the taxation on the house and they're gonna freeze like you're gonna do the home buyer tax credit stuff. It's like we're not gonna tell them that we fix shit. We're just like it is what it is. It looks nice. Because they say that they're not going, as long as you don't do more than 25% of the house's improvements, they're not going to really do too much. So it's like, we'll do like one thing here, one thing there, maybe hurricane windows this year, maybe tinted hurricane windows next year, maybe, new paint on the outside, just a little bit here and there and just keep improving it. And then uh, you'll find yourself in a nice position where at that point, when you do decide to go and get a mortgage or something like that on the property, they're going to be like, oh, well, what's the house worth right now? Then uh, in that situation, they'll be like, oh, bet, um, appraisal, and you're like, shoo, the house is worth like 500 grand, which you bought it for like 100 grand. You got so much equity in the house now. Fantastic. Now you got money to leverage. Go to work. There you go play. If you want to go play, you can go play. But I'm about to. I'm diving into the topic now, Michael. I'm diving into the topic now. So Michael want me to get to work. Imagine two people. First, picture someone on a private jet flying to a tiny Caribbean island, right? They're carrying a briefcase, and let's just say it's not for beachwear. Not it doesn't. It's not full of clothes. This is going to be your classic movie villain, a tax evading billionaire, right? The person the news always warns you about. Now, imagine a second person. They're a freelance graphic designer sitting in a cafe in Lisbon, maybe Bali, laptop open. They just use a mobile app to open a bank account in Germany so they can get paid by a client in Berlin without losing a fortune in fees. Here's the here's the twist, and this changes how you see global finance. What if I told you both of these people are using the exact same system? How would you feel about that? What? Yeah. He said Clinton. Bro, yeah, everybody. It ain't just Epstein, Clinton, Trump, Elon Musk, everybody. You can't even say Elon without saying Musk because his name sounds weird at just Elon or Musk. It's like Elon Musk. You got to say it together. Like a pimp name slip back or a child called Quest. You got to say the whole thing. uh, but anyway, everybody who got extra money lying around, even what's his name, Myron from Fresh and Fit. You got everybody who got extra money lying around going to have money somewhere else. It's This is called an offshore banking system. One of these individuals might be a criminal, but the other one is just efficient. The line between secret scam and a legitimate tool is far thinner and frankly far more interesting than you've been led to believe. And by the end of tonight's show, you'll know exactly where the line is drawn. In terms of offshore banking, probably conjures up a very specific image, right? Sun drenched, palm fringed islands, anonymous companies, and shady figures hiding cash from the tax. It's the stuff a spiraler and angry headlines. We're told it's a secret club for the super rich, a rigged game where they play by different rules, and we get left with the bill. And for a long time, a lot of that was disturbingly true. But what if that's only half of the story? What if the world of offshore finance has gone through a quiet revolution? What if it's no longer just about secrecy and tax evasion? Is it possible that offshore banking has become a legitimate, even necessary tool for a new generation of global citizens, a tool that anyone with a passport and an internet connection can legally use to protect their assets, simply improving their lives and operate on the world stage in a legal fashion. The conversation isn't just about hiding money anymore. It is about protection versus evasion, privacy versus secrecy, and global access versus national limits. The question is no longer if people are moving money across the borders, but why and how they're moving that money. And they were pulling back yet another curtain on one of the world's most misunderstood financial concepts. We'll bust those Hollywood myths, explore its dark history, and uncover the 5 legitimate benefits driving its use today. We'll also look at a very real risk and headache that's involved. And I'll show you exactly who it is for, and more importantly, who it's not for. So forget the villains for a moment, the private jets, and just for a second, think about the real story of offshore banking. Before we can separate the scam strategy, we need a brutally simple definition because the name itself, designed to sound confusing, is done so for a purpose. Offshore makes it sound exotic and far away. In reality, offshore banking is just the act of using a bank service in any country where you are not a resident. That's it. That simple. That's straightforward. If you're an American living in New York and you have a bank account in what we normally identify as Switzerland, that's the first one that pops to mind, Swiss bank accounts. One of the reasons why people used to get Swiss bank accounts is because there used to not be a tax treaty between Switzerland and the United States. I'm not sure if there is one now, but I do know that if there is, that Swiss bank account idea is not always a thing. But think about this, because that's offshore. If you are a Nigerian professional in Lagos with an account in the United Kingdom to manage investments, you're also an offshore banker. And if you're a Brazilian digital nomad who uses a Lithuanian financial app to hold euros for European clients, you too are in fact an offshore banker. So think of it this way. The bank in your hometown is considered domestic. Any bank you use outside your country of residence is, in a financial sense, offshore. So the location doesn't make the activity illegal. It's what you do at the location that makes the activity illegal. So if you have a Canadian account and you're in the United States, that's offshore. If you have a Mexican account and you're in the United States, that is offshore because it is off of the territory of the United States. You live in the United States and you have an account that is not in the United States, that is offshore. That is now, if you're in America, you live in New York, you have a bank account in Hawaii, that is still the United States, that's not offshore. That's out of state banking because it's not in the same state. If you live in one city in New York and you have a bank account in a different city, that might be out of county banking because it's out of the county that you're banking in, that you normally live in. If you remember when we were kids and we used to go to those magnet schools and stuff to that effect, and it was the school that was out of our house was out of the jurisdiction of the school. So you would have been like an out of network child or like the out of network provider. if it is not incorporated into the normality of what is supposed to be here, that's what's on the outside. You can't use it. It just means that it doesn't go under the same rules because different locations have different rules. But as long as you're following all of the rules, then everything's fine. Now, this is the single most important myth to bust right away is offshore banking is not by default illegal. What's illegal is what you do with it and how many secrets you try to keep because of it. Okay? The crime is almost never about the location of your money. It is about not being honest about the fact that you have it. It's about tax evasion, which is hiding income from your home country's tax authority, or money laundering, using an account in another country to move money to another country or through another country's channel without it actually going into your direct bank account. And that is going to be hiding illegal source of your money, where you got it from a dope boy, you're passing it along to somebody else, you got to get a commission for it. Those things are the illegal portions of it. The offshore account itself is just a tool. You decide whether to build something with it or commit a crime with it. I recommend that you build something positive with it. Legacy, generational wealth, that's what I recommend. But I mean, if you chose to do the latter, that's up to you. So what does these accounts actually do? At their core, they give you access to services that you might not get at home. The most basic is holding different currencies in different countries so that you don't have to pay for the currency exchange rate. An offshore account lets you hold US dollars, euros, Swiss francs, and Brit pounds all in one place. So you can receive and make globally without facing terrible conversion fees and exchange rates. They can also provide access to different investment markets and international credit cards. The legality of all this hangs on two acronyms that completely change the financial world. FATCA, FATCA, and CARS, CRS. FATCA, the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. This is a U.S. law that forces foreign banks all over the world to report on the accounts held by not businesses. If a Swiss bank has an American client, it must report that account's details to the IRS. Not the business, not a trust. Big difference. If the bank refuses, it faces huge penalties. There's no hiding for Americans in an offshore account. But remember when I was talking about at the beginning, and that's how we got into that real estate topic when I was talking about in the beginning about building a trust. If you built a trust and you structured it efficiently, the core of the trust can be accessed in the country that it was created in. But if you created an offshore trust and did a Schedule K for that offshore trust, where your money from this trust goes to that trust, and then that trust, it can do some stuff and then potentially go to another trust. Your money can go wherever it's got to go because it is legal tender. It's not laundering just because you sent it from person A to person B to person C. Only the tax evasion portion of this is what the laundering is about. But if you're moving your money from this location to that location over there, whatever that trust is doing over there, that trust can send money to another country's trust. If you have a bank account in that country and that bank account belongs to a trust that's not a U.S. citizen, the trust is not a U.S. citizen. So that trust is not going to report the way your personal bank account would report. That's a big difference. Can different countries be an investment? Yes. Different currencies. Can you invest? Oh, the currency, not the country. Can different currencies be an investment? If you're, well, there's fees involved with currency exchange. So if you buy certain currency and you're lucky and the US dollar tanks, and then you buy back into the US dollar, if the cost of those transactions turns out a profit for you, then yes, you can. But if you're buying American dollars while the market is back, right? Or you have American dollars while the market is back, and then after the war, the market starts getting better and you start changing dollars for pesos, you might lose something on the currency exchange, depending on when you do it. And if your financial transactions are time sensitive, you're not capable of waiting until the market is back in your favor to make that transaction. You're going to make the transaction so that the the transaction is done, and then whatever loss you have to take at that time, you take that loss. For the rest of the world, there's CRS, which is the Common Reporting Standard. Think of CRS as the global version of FATCA. Over 100 countries have signed on to this agreement, creating a massive automated information sharing network. An Australian's bank account in Singapore, the bank in Singapore automatically tells the Australian tax office. So it's not just it's about preventing laundering and evasion. A French citizen's investment account in Hong Kong. The French authorities get the notification from Hong Kong. This automatic information exchange is the bedrock of modern offshore banking. It means the days of opening a secret numbered Swiss bank account to hide cash are basically over. The game has changed. Banks now have to know who their customers are and where their money comes from and report that information back to their home country. To run an offshore account legally, you have to follow two sets of rules: the banking laws of the host country of your own home country. Compliance is an option. It's the price of admission. So if today's offshore world is all about transparency and reporting, where did the sinister reputation come from? Why do we immediately picture a Bond villain stroking a white cat when we hear Cayman Islands bank account? Goldfinger, right? $1 million. Why? Why do we? Well, that reputation was earned and built over a century of secrecy, scandals, and some genuinely shady business by people who had money. The basic idea isn't new. For centuries, wealthy merchants stored assets outside their local king's reach. But the modern era of offshore banking really kicked off in one specific place, which was Switzerland, which is why when we think offshore banking, we think Swiss bank account, right? First one we hit. In 1934, Switzerland passed its famous Banking Act, which made it a criminal offense for a bank to reveal a client's identity. This was revolutionary. It wasn't just a bank policy, it was the law of the land, with prison time for any banker who broke that seal of confidentiality. This law wasn't first designed for tax cheats. It was created to protect the assets of German Jews and other fleeing persecution in Europe who needed a safe place for their money away from hostile governments. But after World War II, this ironclad secrecy attracted a different crowd. Wealthy people from high tax countries like America who realized they could stash money in Geneva and their home tax authorities would never know. The era of the secret Swiss bank account was born. Then in the 1960s and 70s, the game expanded as the British Empire faded. A bunch of small, newly independent island nations needed to build economies. Places like the Cayman Islands, Bermuda, and the Bahamas realized they didn't have many natural resources, but they could offer something else: financial secrecy and zero taxes. They created laws that allowed for the quick, anonymous creation of international business companies or IBCs. You could set up a company where local lawyers serve as the public face. Those are what we call I'm trying to think about it off the top of my head. It's the person responsible for receiving your legal documents and representation for you under the jurisdiction of that particular location. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but if it pops up, I'm just going to jump back on it. But it's almost like a power of attorney, but it is the person that is legally allowed to accept legal action of any kind or any legal notices on your behalf or on behalf of the company, even though they don't work for the company. They're just a representative that benefits from being notified. That's one of that position is what those legal lawyers do. Now, while the real owners are going to stay completely hidden, these people are designed to be the public face. These places had no income tax, no corporate tax, no capital gains tax, and I've covered quite a few of them over the last year that we've been doing this. Mix that with Swiss style banking secrecy, and you have the perfect recipe for a tax haven. It was fast, anonymous, and tax free. This was the golden age of tax evasion, attracting everyone from corporations to corrupt dictators, drug cartels, and yes, rich people who just didn't feel like paying taxes. This system operated in shadows for decades, but then things started to change. The 2008 financial crisis put enormous pressure on governments. They were broke, and they knew trillions of dollars were sitting undeclared in these offshore centers. The, the political will to crack down had finally arrived. The first major blow was the U.S. law FATCA in 2010. But the real earthquake came from a series of massive data leaks that you definitely heard of. The Panama Papers in 2016 and the Paradise Papers in 2017. Whistleblowers leaked millions of documents from offshore law firms, exposing the hidden finances of politicians, celebrities, and corporate giants. These leaks did two things. First, they confirmed everyone's worst fear about the scale of offshore tax evasion. But more importantly, they shattered the illusion of secrecy. Suddenly, an undeclared offshore account wasn't a safe bet, it was a ticking time bomb, spurred by public outrage. The um, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, accelerated its push for global transparency, leading to the widespread adoption of the Common Reporting Standard, or CRS, with CRS the old model of offshore banking. the one based on hiding money, was dealt a fatal blow. Jurisdictions that refused to comply were blacklisted, cutting them off from the global financial system. To survive, the classic havens had to clean up their act, and they signed on the CRS and agreed to share information automatically. What happens in the dark comes to the light. Yeah, eventually. But see, that's one of the things that we talk about. It's like if you're not making enough money to report and you don't report and they don't come looking for you and they don't come looking for you, yeah. However, you start making a decent quantity of money and they start looking at you, they have the ability to audit how long have you been doing this? And then they'll find out a pattern of behavior. That's when red flags start coming. The 1 year you start making too much money, you might want to start claiming everything. Typically, anything over $40,000, especially $200,000, you want to start claiming everything you got access to. But again, we're talking about people. Businesses have different laws that they operate under, and when you start dealing with trust, and when you start dealing with assets from trust, your earned income that you claim is going to be identified under you filing taxes under claimed income. But what say you have a trust in Belarus? And what say you that trust is paying for your standard of living in Tibet? Um, your residency in Tibet's covered. You don't really have a bank account in Tibet. It's going into a business account in Tibet or a trust account in Tibet. And then it is that account is being utilized for the basic standard. You start stretching the line of tax evasion there, but the accounts that are owned by the trust operate under different laws than the accounts that are owned by an individual person. So, while yes, the trustee has to make sure that the trust claims taxes and pays taxes, which means that any taxation that can be done will be done under the trust. The money that you personally spent ain't had nothing to do with you. It was about the trust. So even though you personally aren't paying taxes on the money, taxes are still being paid on the money because the trust is going to pay taxes when you don't. So people might say, oh, that's tax evasion. No, it's not because somebody's claiming the money. It's just not you. You're going to spend it, but somebody else is going to claim it and then pay whatever taxes needs to be paid on behalf of the person who's controlling the money before you spend it. It's just a different dynamic. So instead of having the mind of trying to keep everything off the books, how you want to be above board. You want to be able to claim every dollar that you have, but also claim every deduction that you have that qualifies you not to have to pay taxes. If you're making $500,000 a year in the United States, you should be buying a bunch of real estate in Japan. That way, since you're claiming all of your international income, you need to claim your international debt too and say, well, shit, that $500,000 property in Nagano offset the $500,000 of profit that I made in Jersey, right? Billionaires still breaking even while telling the truth. There's no reason for embezzlements or extortions of any kind. The industry had to shift from a business of secrecy to a business of regulated transparency. So the James Bond villain was officially on notice. If the era of hiding money is over, why does the offshore industry still exist? Well, if your tax authority gets notified anyway, what's the point? This brings us to the modern legitimate use of offshore banking. It's no longer about what you can hide, but what you can legally achieve. The reasons aren't as scandalous as the myths, but they're far more practical. And They fall into five key categories. First and most powerful, asset protection. This isn't about hiding assets from the law. It's about protecting them with the law. Imagine you're a successful surgeon in a field where multi-million dollar lawsuits are consistent threats. By placing some of your assets into a properly structured offshore trust in a place with strong creditor protection law, like the Cook Islands or the Cayman Islands, you build a legal fortress around your wealth. Notice I said in an offshore trust, not a personal bank account in another country. Big difference. Elon Musk finances property and look at his net worth. Now y'all see why I be telling y'all every time we talk about a different country around the world, more often than not, I mention at some point in time getting into the economic zones of real estate development where you're buying properties in low income areas and developing those properties into rental properties because the government will provide you with relief in that country to build in that country, and then you're going to turn a profit after you built in that country off of ongoing renter problems because you're solving a global problem that we have less available housing than we have people who need housing. And that has no impact on the homeless population. It just means that more people per building are piling up. In America, we have maybe the building code laws are like two people per room, including the living room. So if it's a 3 bedroom apartment, you can have two people in each bedroom and two people living in the living room. That's four people. No, 6 people, 8 people. Let me count it up. 2 people per room in a 3 bedroom apartment is 6 people. Two more people in the living room. That is 8 people living in a 3 bedroom house. That is allowed under the building code. And they can split the money 8 ways. It's a very uncomfortable way to live because I like my own personal space. But 8 people can live in a 3 bedroom place and split the money and only pay 1/8 of the cost of the standard of living there and build their wealth on the rest. Imagine you staying in a 3 bedroom house that's upward of like $2,000 a month for that 3 bedroom house. There's 8 people staying there, and each one of y'all got to pay $250 a month to stay there. $300 total. If you're making $3,000 a month, that's not a lot of money in a lot of places. But if all of your bills cost $300 for the month, that's a steal. You've got another $1,700 a month that you can put somewhere else. Or actually, when I think about it, I said 3,000, so that's $2,700 a month that you can put somewhere else. That's a lot of money. That's almost 30 grand a year that you can literally reinvest because you're saving money by splitting the cost 8 ways. But in other countries, they don't have enough houses. So people can't move out and live on their own. One of the reasons why children are still living with their parents is not just because they can't afford it, but because there's nowhere to go. The demand is high, the supply is low, and that's why the cost of real estate is going up. That's why the cost of rental properties is going up. If there was more available apartments than there were renters, the cost would go down because nobody wanted. I go get a cheaper one, right? So I tell you guys on a regular basis, you start by building up a brokerage account, use the profits from the brokerage account to start with your real estate investment account, take the profits from your real estate investment and expand. Expand, expand, expand. Eventually, you'll reach a certain quantity of income coming in that you're satisfied with, and then you can start transitioning into gold and silver and all these other precious metals. But if you started with a brokerage account that's paying you 100% dividends, transition into a brokerage account that has a growth in it so that you have growth and cash flow coming in. Leverage that portfolio to get cash to go and get a real estate somewhere. Use that real estate to generate profit, then leverage that real estate to get more real estate and use those profits to get more profits. Then you can continue to expand, right? And eventually, if you put all, like I said before, you put all the stuff into a trust and have the trust control that stuff in another country. And you can have a trust with the clause of transitioning any extra assets that's not managing the trust to another trust. That could be the exact instruction. Is that after paying the X number quantity or whatever, X, Y, and Z goes into the other thing. You can have a trust that specifically only manages the property, and then have another trust that manages the money. The trust that manages the money needs to be in a tax-free country. That's the one that needs to have specifically a non-residential trust in a tax-free country. Then you put all your assets over there, or the control of your assets are over there, and then that country's not going to charge you taxes. Well, not going to charge you trust tax. Now, your trust is going to have certain duties and clauses in it in order to take the money from the trust and put it towards your personal expectations. And when it issues you money, how it issues you money is determined whether or not that's a profit or not. Or, because here's the funny part, gifts, because there's a gift tax. So you got to figure that part out. But ultimately, if you're doing it wisely, it should trickle into a bank account that is owned by a business that is going to be paying for the overhead that includes the property that you're renting. Still, the business is going to claim taxes on it, but the deductions that the business gets after receiving the income from the investors, the ultimate response is you personally are not going to have to pay taxation on it a second or third time after the money is moved through all of these entities. So if an unfair lawsuit comes, the assets that are in that trust are governed by the laws and jurisdiction of that country, not your home country. So you got a trust in another country that is a non-residential trust, and that non-residential trust turns out to like, let's say you get hit with even like the most devastating thing that happens in this country, child support. No one is going to force the trust to give you money. No one. They can garnish your wages from your employer. But if the trust is paying for the rent on a property that you use, they can't take that. If the trust is paying for the car insurance and the maintenance on a vehicle that you drive, they can't take that. They can't take the car. You don't own the car. You don't own the house. You don't own the cell phone or the cell phone bill. You don't own anything in the house, but you can use it. That's how trust protects you. They can't take anything. You have the authorization to use the stuff that is owned by the trust as a beneficiary of the trust. But you can't sell anything, so they can't take anything from you. Well, in other countries. Now, in the United States, they can rip that trust apart. If you can benefit from it, they can benefit from you benefiting from it. Which is why offshore trusts provide you added protection. It makes it difficult. It makes it incredibly difficult and expensive for creditors to try to go after whatever it is they're trying to go after, often forcing a more reasonable settlement than the one that they were trying to go after. It's a defensive legal strategy. So if all you got accessible to you is, let's say, $1,000 a month income, because the trust is covering everything else, all of your expenses is paid. The Land Rover, the Range Rover, the Bugatti, all of that stuff is covered under the trust. The mansion with the 52 bedrooms, all of that stuff is covered under the trust. But the $1,000 a month that you're getting for spending money, less than what the United States requires for earned income credit, because right now it's like 14.3, 14.5 is the taxable income starter. So if you're getting $12,000 a year, which is $1,000 a month, as spending money, it's non-taxable income. You can claim that $12,000 worth of pocket money today. I mean, I'm getting $12,000 a year from my trust, and they're gonna say, well, that's not enough for us to take taxes out of your pocket. And they're going to leave you alone. But if all you're getting is $12,000 a year worth of spendable capital, and you can use everything else under the trust, if somebody sues you for 100 grand, it's like, well, bro, all I make is 12,000 a year. You are an indigent. Certain laws protect you from having your entire livelihood taken out of your back pocket. They can't seize any assets because you don't have them. The clothes on your back, can't sell them. So there's less that they can do to you. But if you have a house that you have legal authority over, which is one of the reasons why having a third party as a trustee is better than you being a trustee, because if you are a trustee, you have legal control over it, you legally can sell all the assets in the trust and pay them the debt that you owe them, which is why you do a third party, which is why you pay that 1%. That's a fee for protection. This also applies to political and economic instability. If you live in a country with a volatile government or the threat of sudden capital controls that could freeze your accounts for any bullshit that's got going on, holding some savings in a stable jurisdiction like Switzerland or Singapore is a rational act of financial self-protection. It ensures a crisis at home doesn't wipe out your life savings. So if you've got a trust account in the Caribbean, in the Cayman Islands, they freeze your assets in Texas. Well, you're not using any bank accounts from Texas. That don't mean you can't spend money. He says, well, what if that paid trustee tries to pull a fast one on you and rob your trust? Well, why would he? Why would he? I know that the fear of being fucked over is always a question. But if your job was to count this money and make sure that two things happen, it continuously generates more success and nobody else fucks over this estate. That's your whole job. And you are getting paid 2% of the value of whatever the hell you're watching. So if you're watching a $2 million account, you're getting what, $400,000? Well, no, what's that, like $40,000, right? Just to watch it, just to log in and invest in whatever needs to be invested in, reinvestments, whatever needs to be reinvested in, pay whatever bills that needs to be paid for the month, make sure that the landscapers come and take care of the property every month, make sure that the appraiser comes and appraises the house every year, make sure that the inspectors come and inspect every year and do the necessary repairs that need to be done every year. And you're really just looking at the books, making a few phone calls, making sure that everybody is doing what they're trying to do. The odds of a trustee who is getting paid more than enough to watch your money grow rob you is the odds of a bank manager that's making more money than their standard of living is likely to rob the bank. It is far less common that a third party trustee will rob you because they're getting paid to do nothing until something needs to be done. That's called a retainer fee. So for 30 days out of the month, you got to make 5 or 7 phone calls at the first of the month to make sure that all the stuff that needs to be covered on this account is taken care of for the rest of the month. And you're getting like 40, 50, $100,000 a year, 200, $500,000 a year to make sure that this account continues to make enough money to pay your salary. Why would you rob it? Why would you take all of the assets? And then because you are contracted to this account, if the money comes up missing, you're going to jail. So why would you risk going to prison for robbing this account when this account is going to pay you for the rest of your life to manage the account? That makes a lot of sense, right? Because imagine being a trustee. Imagine that you're getting paid, let's look at some even standards. 2% of every $1 million account that's there. Right? So, $1 million account, you don't got that many things that you got to do, you don't got that many phone calls you got to make. You're getting 1%. 1% of $1 million is what? $10,000. Let's say you have 20 of those accounts. Let's say you have 100 of those accounts. That's $100,000. Well, if you have 100 accounts, because as a trustee, you're going to be doing this like 8 hours a day, 7 days, 5 days a week. You might actually be doing this like 6 hours a day, 4 days a week. But you're only going to be on the phone for like 30 minutes to an hour for one account. You more than likely can juggle 20 or 30 accounts. You might be able to juggle 200 or 300 accounts. If each account is giving you between $10,000 and $100,000 per account, and you can manage $100,000 worth of accounts where you're making $100,000 and you're managing $100 million worth of accounts, why would you rob one? You show up every day and you just make sure that everything is done the way it's supposed to be done, and then you clock out and go home. You have no client complaints until somebody wants to change something on the trust, add something to it, take something off. Usually, more to the magnitude, it's adding people on and taking people off. That usually where the biggest friction comes from. And then, in all of your arrogance, because you are self-entitled to tell them no, if it says it in the trust that you can't do it, I'm sorry, I can't. My hands are tied. It clearly states right here that you're not allowed to do that. It is what it is. And that's the whole structure of the business, is to watch other people's money. So why rob the people who are paying for your standard of living? We're not talking about Catholic churches right now. We're talking about trust. Why rob people that are paying for your entire standard of living? We ain't giving to the building fund right now. We paying the brother's salary. So, I mean, you heard that classic advice. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Most people think about that with stocks and bonds. Global diversification takes a step further with this particular dynamic. It's about diversifying across different countries, different currencies, and different banking systems. If your entire net worth is in one country and one country's currency, you're totally exposed to the risks of that single economy. A spike in inflation could get your savings gutted quickly. A banking crisis could threaten your deposit. By holding funds in multiple currencies like US dollars, euros, Swiss francs, you can hedge against your home currency's volatility. So remember when you told me, can you profit off of investing in capital? Yes, if you've got money in US dollars, you've got money in Swiss francs, you've got yen, you've got yuan, you've got euros, you've got pesos, you've got baht. Yes, by taking a little bit of money here when the market is down and putting it into this capital here when their market is up, when it switches, you can move that money back when the market is up and this market is down. You move that money back and turn a profit because the act of moving the money from one your currency to the next is the transaction. But if making a purchase, if you go to Iran right now during the war in the United as a United States citizen, y'all flew over there, y'all blew up a couple things, somebody got hungry and decided to go to a McDonald's right down the street from the blast site. I know this sounds crazy, but let's just throw out the hypothetical. You park your B-12, 14, whatever space jet thingy, land it in the middle of somebody's backyard, jump out, and steal a local's car and drive down to the nearest McDonald's. You've got a credit card and you might have cash. If your credit card doesn't function with international purchases, you don't have any money. If your currency is not accepted at the register, you don't have any money. So if you were planning on going there in advance, like when Trump get in the office, we're gonna blow some stuff up. And you opened up a bank account over there, as long as the bank didn't get burned down when you drop bombs, you can go to the bank and withdraw some cash and go to and not have to pay a currency exchange because the money in the bank account is already in that country's currency. Pull out the money you need, drop bombs, blow stuff up, buy you some stuff in the drive-thru, hop in your B-12, B-2 bomb or whatever, and then fly out of there. and have a story to tell everybody like, yo, we went to Iran, got some oil, and came back with two number fives. Like, I know that sounds ridiculous, but in the magnitude of the convenience of having financial capital in other countries, when you get there, the money's already there. I told you guys this before. If you're traveling with more than $10,000 in cash or more than $10,000 of valued assets, because you can travel with gold and silver too, and they'll steal it. The feds will steal it. The same way ISIS murdering people in the street, the feds will rob you and then say, in the interest of public safety, and steal your money. They will rob you. You have to have a legal document to prove that this is not part of a illegal drug trade. So you have to have like a tax form that shows that you got this money from the bank. And then in order to do that, you would have to tell the bank exactly what you were planning on doing with the money and where you planned on going with the money. And then when you got to that location, you got to fill out more tax forms to show where you got the money from and then prove that you dropped the money off and all of this other stuff to prove that you're not laundering money, to prove that you're not in the middle of a drug trade. If you bring a cashier's check with you, it's less likely to have any bullshit with you. But in order for them to cash the check, you're going to have to deposit that value of money into their bank account. And then the fees for that is going to come out of the total principal. Whatever's left, you can use it. All of these complications are less complicated if you just wire transfer some money over there. That's one of the things that people don't think about. So if the money was already there before you left, you want to go to Singapore for the summer. You've been sending money to Singapore to your specific bank account, not some friend that you supposedly trust. Your personal bank account or your business bank account, your trust account in Singapore. Now, in the summer, when you fly to Singapore, all you're taking is the clothes on your back, maybe a duffel bag or two. You're gonna fly over to Singapore. Your money's already there, so you can just take the money out as soon as you touch down, and now you have currency to pay for it. That is part of the power of international banking. It is not just about evading Uncle Sam, because if you spend enough tax deductible money, you can tell Uncle Sam how much stuff you bought after you tell him what you bought versus how much money you made. And you could make $1 billion, but if you spent 990 something $1 million, he might tell you anyway, don't worry about it, you good. You spent more money than you should have. I ain't gonna take no money out your pocket. It's a thing. Billionaires on paper have over $1 billion worth of debt with $1 billion worth of profits. They don't own anything, but they control everything. That's the dynamic. Now, an offshore account acts as a second engine for your financial life. If the engine at home sputters, you have another one running smoothly somewhere else. It's like having a backup car for your cash. Third, and most controversial, tax efficiency. Let's be crystal clear. This is not tax evasion. As much as people with less knowledge than what they need to have in life believe, tax evasion is illegal. Tax efficiency or tax optimization is the legal use of tax law and tax treaties to lower your tax burden. So remember, under CRS and FATCA, you have to report your world income. So how can there be a tax benefit? The benefit comes from structuring your affairs to avoid things like being taxed twice. For example, an international business owner might get paid by clients in 5 different countries. Without a plan, that income could be taxed multiple times. Once where it was earned, and again where the owner lives. By using an offshore company in a jurisdiction with a wide network of tax treaties, they can legally structure their income flow to ensure it only taxes once, ideally by the United States, in the right place if you can do it better. This is what big companies like Apple and Google do. But the principles can also apply to smaller international businesses. So if you're generating revenue in a country that does not have sales tax, corporate tax, personal tax, you are creating non tax income. If you are bringing in an income in the United States, they're still going to tax you in the United States if the money goes to the United States as an income. So you have to watch those tax laws free and well, not free and clear, but you have to watch the tax laws with a clear eye. Fourth thing, you're looking at enhanced privacy, especially if you're using trust. And again, this is going to be a critical distinction. Privacy is not secrecy. Secrecy means hiding from the government. As we've established, that is a myth. That is not true now. True financial secrecy is dead, but privacy is very much alive. Privacy is about protecting your financial information from the general public, from data miners, from nosy relatives, from fraudsters. Jurisdictions like Switzerland still have incredibly strong bank confidentiality laws. A banker who leaks your financial details to an unauthorized third party can face serious criminal penalties. So they can't tell their homeboy that you just dropped a stack of cash in their bank account. But they do got to tell Elon Musk when Elon Musk was over there counting the money for Doge in the government in the beginning of 25. He had to say, hey, I just got to launch the cash while y'all counting everybody money because the government's got to know. Now that Elon's not there anymore, Donald Trump's got somebody else doing it, and that person's being told. So while your information is still being reported to the correct tax authority by law, it is shielded from the public eye. So in an age of endless data breaches, this legal right to financial privacy is a valuable thing that is less accessible in your home country. Because whenever somebody wants to fuck with you in court, they can get a subpoena of your bank records. They can't subpoena another country for your bank records unless you're dealing with international espionage or some shit like that. When you're dealing with divorces and prenups, when you have a prenuptial agreement and you leave off trust accounts that you are personally the trustee of, and that trust account is generating revenue, and she knows about that trust account. You mentioned it in a conversation and she took notes or some shit. Then she tells her lawyer, oh, I know he's got money in the kingdom. He showed me. They do their research and they find an account in your name. This protects you from that. If there is a trust account in the kingdom and that trust account is owning all of the assets, there is a lot more public scrutiny where some random Joe Schmo can't come and find out, do you own any banks in the Cayman? No, you don't. The trustee does. Right? Now, the fifth reason, and the fifth reason here finally is simply convenience and access. And this may be the biggest driver for the new generation of offshore banking users. Expats, digital nomads, and online entrepreneurs. If you live in a global life, domestic banking can be a complete nightmare. Try paying someone in Canada from a bank in Thailand. You'll face a mountain of paperwork, long delays, and you'll lose 5 to 7% of your money to bad exchange rates and hidden fees. An offshore account, especially through modern fintech platforms, solves this. It gives you multi-currency account that can hold dollars, euros, and pounds at the same time. You can get paid by a US client into your dollar balance and pay your contractor in Europe from your euro balance account, all from one app with minimal fees. For many, it is not about taxes or secrecy at all. It's about finding a financial tool that actually works for a life lived across borders. So, of the five legitimate benefits, asset protection, diversification, tax efficiency, privacy, and global convenience, which one surprises you the most or seems like the most powerful? Let me know in the comments because it's a fascinating thing to see what resonates with people and it helps me figure out what we'll cover in the future. So far, we're halfway through. We've painted a picture of reform, legitimate financial tools, but it would be irresponsible to ignore the other side of the coin. Offshore banking is still filled with risk, complexity, and major headaches. It's not a simple fix. And jumping in without knowing the dangers is a recipe for financial disaster. So let's hammer this home one more time. First myth, offshore banking is illegal. Fact is, it is only illegal if you are using it for illegal purposes like tax evasion or money laundering. Having an account is legal. Hiding it is the crime. Myth number two, it's a way to pay zero taxes. Fact is, this is the most dangerous myth of all. Your home country, if it has resident-based taxation like the United States, Canada, or the United Kingdom, taxes that you on your world income is still taxes on you. That automatic info sharing via CRS or FATCA ensures they know about your offshore income, any money that you make, any money that's deposited into your account. So believing that you can earn money offshore and just not declare it is a fast track to audit, crippling fines, and maybe even prison. Which is one of the reasons why I told you before, you've got offshore trust. If you built the trust in that country and you're sending money to the trust in that country, and that trust is managing assets in that country, the trustee is covering the taxes on that trust for you, whatever taxes is on that country. If you're trying to do a digital nomad scenario in, say, Philippines requires you to have $24,000 or more of income in the Philippines, which is taxable income. If you are a U.S. citizen, dual citizenship, and in the Philippines, and still a tax citizen of the United States, because just because you become a tax citizen of another country doesn't mean that you're not still a tax citizen of the United States. You have to do some paperwork to transition yourself from being a viable tax citizen of the United States to a tax citizen of another country and not be bound by U.S. Law as a U.S. citizen. There's some stuff you got to do. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm living in the Philippines now. I don't have to pay taxes because I don't live there anymore." Unless you renounce your citizenship, you got some responsibilities you got to maintain. So if you're getting 24,000 a year in the Philippines, you got to claim it in both areas. One to the Filipino government to show that you qualify for the digital nomad visa, but then again in the United States. Now, if the United States is going to tax you on it, the Philippines may not tax you. If the Philippines taxes you on it, you might tell the United States you already paid taxes on it in the Philippines and they not tax you in the United States. That's where tax benefits come from. Because if you pay taxes on the money in the Philippines, you're not going to give the United States taxes on the same money that's double taxed, right? And if the tax rate in the United States is higher than the tax rate in the Philippines, you don't want to be getting taxed in the United States. But what if you went to the Philippines at $24,000 a year and the taxes is cheaper in the United States? You got more deductions in the United States. If that's the case, you might say, "Fuck it, I want to get paid in the United States get the tax credits from the United States and not have to pay so much taxes by deductions and credit, and then just wire transfer the post-tax money to the Philippines. Because part of the digital nomad requirement is that the money is coming from outside of the country, from somewhere. And likewise, if you had the money go into an account like Belize or Belarus or Caribbean, Cayman, something like that, and it was in a no tax country, that taxes isn't going to tax you on. Doesn't mean the U.S. isn't going to try, but if you've got deductions from the U.S., if you've got taxation from the U.S. on the money in Belarus, then you've got deductions in the U.S. for building in Belarus. This is so if the U.S. is, if I'm going to go to Japan and I'm going to start up a real estate investment property in Japan, and the U.S. is going to tax me money on it, anything over like $150,000 or $250,000, if they're going to try to tax me on it, I'm going to try to get the tax deductions off of it. It's like, well, bro, you want money, but I just spent $250,000 over there. Like, what are you trying to do, right? And that's why, just like they said earlier, Elon Musk got financial properties everywhere because uh, investing in real estate is a law and is utilized as what is called a tax blanket because debt is offset from profit. And if you have generated more debt this fiscal year than you generated profit, on paper, you still don't pay taxes. Now, myth number 2, your money is invisible and totally secret. No, fact is, a fantasy from a bygone era is what people think. Your data is being shared everywhere. The government knows who has what. But a trust is a standalone entity like an LLC or a C corporation. So you being the beneficiary of a trust is equivalent to you being the employee of a company. The company paying taxes in another country got squat to do with you. The trust paying taxes in another country got squat to do with you. That's the difference. So the privacy that you get from the public is what you're getting from international banking, not from the taxes. The other myth, it's easy and cheap to set up. Fact is, while fintech has lowered the barrier, opening a proper account at a reputable, legitimate, seemingly safe international bank is often a very difficult and expensive thing to do. Premier banks in Singapore or Switzerland often require a minimum deposit of $50,000. 50,000 US dollars and going into the millions. Onboarding process involves intense know your customer checks. So you'll be asked for tons of documents to prove your identity, your address, and most importantly, the source of your wealth to make sure that it's not being acquired from illegal sources. This isn't like opening a checking account down the street. Now, for the real world risk, first is compliance and regulatory risk. The rules are complex and always changing. So if you're a U.S. citizen, you have to file a form called a FBAR if your foreign account balance tops $10,000 at any point during the year. The penalty for failing to file this form is severe, starting at around $16,000 for a non-willful mistake and going up to $165,000 or 50% of the account balance for a willful failure. Okay, so making a paperwork mistake can be a life-altering financial blow. Second, jurisdictional and reputational risk. The stability and reputation of your bank's country matters. So you can't tell when the United States is going to go at somebody. Because I mean, They didn't have no beef with Iran until they couldn't get that oil. And they're about to go after Iran and precious minerals and everything and be like, it's the news. No, it's not. No, it's not. International bodies maintain gray lists and blacklist of countries with weak financial controls. So if your choosing jurisdiction gets gray listed, your transactions might suddenly face extreme delays or even be blocked altogether. A simple wire transfer could get stuck in compliance limbo for weeks. Third, you face banking and currency risk. An offshore bank is still a bank, and it can still fail. So while major hubs have deposit insurance, it might not be as generous as what you're used to. You also have currency risk because if you're holding all of your funds in US dollars but live in Europe, a sharp drop in the dollar's value could seriously cut your purchasing power. That will soon be US controlled oil if my theory is correct. I don't know what you're talking about. It's already US controlled oil, man. He said he was going over there, and then the next time he talked about it, he said we was already over there. The next time he talked about it, he said we bombed some stuff in a way where they couldn't rebuild. And then he said, I hope they don't try to rebuild it because we'll bomb them again. Now that's 3 to 4 conversations in less than 2 weeks where he made it clear. This is my shit. And the only reason why they're not beefing directly with China is because China's not trying to stop the bombing. China's trying not to get bombed while they're over there picking up the oil. It's like driving into a bad neighborhood with a pizza delivery during a drive-by. Everybody's shooting at one another. You knocking on the door. Dominoes. Dodging bullets like dominoes. You're not trying to stop what's going on right now. You're just trying to drop off this fucking pizza. You know. So Iran is got by the United States. It is what it is. China is hoping that Iran doesn't get got by the United States. But we already sent most of the people that wasn't really busy doing nothing because we had so many reserves over there to go be nosy in what they had going on. We're in a position right now where they don't really got many saves. They don't really got many saves. So we're in a position right now where theoretically it already happened. We just have to get rid of the people who shooting back. It's like saying, yeah, that's mine. That's mine. We just gotta wait till her friends go home. That's what's going on. We didn't already cover the tab. We just waiting on, as soon as they go outside, that's it. Now, finally, there is a simple risk of being treated like a criminal until proven innocent. This is going to happen just because it's just going to happen. And this is going to be because of the industry's history. Just having an offshore account can raise red flags. Banks can and do decide your risk profile has changed and can close your account with very little notice, forcing you to scramble to find a new home for your money. So you get the benefits and you're aware of the risk. So where does this happen in 2026? The landscape is incredibly diverse, from traditional private banking hubs to nimble digital platforms. It's the best that you can think of in this spectrum. On the one hand, you have the classic low tax jurisdictions. These are the names that you know from the movies: the Cayman Islands, Bermuda, British Virginia Islands, the Bahamas. Today, these places are fully complicated and they're really compliant with CRS and share information. Their business model isn't about individual secrecy anymore. Instead, they specialize in sophisticated corporate structure, trust, and serving as homes for hedge funds and large corporations. Personal disclosure is the requirement. Corporate disclosure is not impacted. So for the average citizen that wants less of their personal identity on public record, you build a trust. These days, you can buy a trust under your LLC and then do a quick claim deed and transfer the trust over to your or transfer the house over to your trust. You can have a trust with a business listed as a trustee. You can have a trust with another trust listed as a trustee. And if you have a trust with a trust listed as a trustee, the trustee of that trustee or the trustee of that trust handles both trusts. So let's say for the sake of for to make this make sense, let's say this and that is a business, the podcast. Then let's say that the podcast is owned by a trust. The trustee of the trust handles the day-to-day operations of the finances of the podcast. Now, let's say that that trust is operated by a trustee that is named another trust. So let's say, I'm the employee of the podcast. The podcast is owned by a trust, and the trust has a trustee of trust number two. Now, let's say trust number two is Bank of America, and let's say trustee for trust number one is trust number two. So that means that trust number two's trustee, Bank of America, has to handle this trust and that trust. Granted, their fees are going to reflect the fact that you're doing that. However, if the property was bought under this and that podcast and then transitioned into the trust, the primary trustee of the trust might be on public record, but the beneficiaries of the trust are not. If the primary trustee is Bank of America, the primary trustee is listed on the property. So what say you, the business is owned by other businesses, and those businesses are owned by other businesses, and those businesses are owned by trusts, and those trusts are owned by another trust, and that trust is owned by a trustee. And that trustee might be Bank of America. Now, the levels of security there, when they do a background check on a business, all they see are business names. Down the line, they see a trust. They can't go any further. If one of the trustees are listed, that's the best that they get. But the trustee that's listed is a business. So they don't know who owns what. It's just being managed by somebody. That is how wealthy people protect themselves. With sophisticated corporate structures, trusts, and serving as homes for hedge funds and large corporations. Now, in the middle are major international financial hubs, and this is the Premier League, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Switzerland. These places offer a powerful mix of stability and highly skilled financial workforce and a pro-business environment. Now, they aren't tax havens. They have taxes, but their systems are built for managing global wealth. So they are the top choices for high net worth individuals. And a high net worth individual is something over $500,000. I'm just going to tell you that right now. Between $250,000 and $1 million or more. So if your total quantity of spendable money or your total quantity of assets, valuable assets, less than that, you don't even want to try that. So your house might be a $700,000 house in California. But if the money to pay for that house is $15,000, you don't want to go there. You don't want to go there. Because remember I told you 2% of the value of the trust is probably what he's going to charge you. So if you've got $1 million worth of assets, they're still going to want their 2%, which might be $40,000. The trust has to generate the $40,000 to pay their 2%. Or you got to as a grantor, do a Schedule K and put the money in there. Otherwise, you would default on the contract with the trustee being able to manage the property, and then the trustee will abandon the contract, and then the properties are abandoned, and then nothing's being managed by nobody. Right? So the catch here, the barriers to enter is going to be high. In these countries, expect minimum deposits in the 6 or even 7-figure ranges and intense customer vetting. When you go there with this big block of capital, $500,000 worth of assets, $1 million worth of assets, you have to be able to show them where you're getting it from, how much you're bringing in, why you want to use it, and all of them in purposes. So it's almost like a prideful rite of passage. And you're probably going to have to spend the day. It might take a few hours, but it might take all day. It might take more time to establish an international bank account than it does to buy yourself a brand new car. You got to make sure that everything works correctly. Right? Then we get to the most revolutionary part of the landscape, the digital gateways and fintech. And this is where offshore banking has become accessible. EU countries like Lithuania and Estonia are now hubs for electronic money institutions and digital banks. And these regulated platforms offer 100% remote onboarding, which means that you can do it from your own home. You can open multi-currency accounts from your laptop in a few days with low or no deposit. And this makes them perfect for digital nomads and freelancers who just need a functional, cheap way to manage money in different countries. What's crucial to know, the difference between a bank and a EMI. A licensed bank usually has government-backed deposit insurance. An EMI, like a Wise account or a Revolt account, is regulated to handle payments, but your funds might not have that same government guarantee. So for the day-to-day transactions, buying stuff in different countries, EMIs are fantastic. For storing your life savings, a traditional well-capitalized bank in a stable hub like Singapore or Switzerland is the safer bet. But if this is what you want to do with your life, and you know that you need like $500,000 to make this work, your 20-year plan is to get that much capital. So if you're in the United States and you're saying, well, shit, I want to have international banks, however many banks you want to have, theoretically, that's how much money you got to raise. So if it takes you 10 years to build up $500,000, if it takes you 20 years to build up $1.5 million, once you built that $1.5 million, and now that you're getting $180,000 a year generated to you, you might decide now is the time to start redirecting that money to a trust in Belarus, and then a trust in Hong Kong, and then a trust in the Philippines, and start moving your money around. And then when you go to those countries, the accounts are there. As long as you are listed as a beneficiary of the trust with legal authorization to withdraw certain quantities of capital from the account, stuff to that effect, it prevents the money from being taken by the government, but it grants you freedom to come and get. As long as you got it set up in a certain way, you're good to go. You could still, like I said, have it set up where the trust is going to issue you a specific quantity of money, and if it's enough money to get you by standard of living, and then like all of the utilities and everything like that is covered by the trust, where at least one property in every country that there is a trust set up at, that there's at least one property and maybe one mode of transportation that's accessible there, you're really just getting spending money because rent, light, gas, water, and potentially cell phones and everything is all that's covered by the trust. And then your ability to buy food and travel to and from your adventure is going to be what you're issued, which means you're going to have a lower quantity of money issued because everything else is covered by the trust. but that lower quantity of money issued actually benefits you because, again, if you have a tax exemption limit and once you exceed that threshold, you got to start paying taxes on that money. You want to be given less directly to you so that you can genuinely claim that and then have more stuff paid on your behalf so that you don't have to claim that. That's the difference. Finally, there is an offshore, onshore, offshore option. That's crazy. Onshore, offshore option. The U.S., for instance, lets non-residents form LLCs in states like Wyoming and Delaware. With that U.S. company, a foreigner can then open a U.S. based business bank account with fintech powered banks. A lot of countries that allow you to set up a bank can allow you to set up a business, and that business can be owned by the trust, and profits can be paid to the trust, and then the trust can pay you separately, which could still put you in a beneficial situation because pre-tax money, well, post-tax money from the business to the trust is then non-tax money as the principal of the trust if the trust doesn't generate revenue. And then post-tax money from the trust to you is post-tax money, which means you're not paying taxes on it. Still taxable income, but it's income that was already taxed. It's just being handed to you. Big difference. You got to pay attention to these things and talk to your financial advisor. Make sure that you guys mash those reaction buttons while you're watching this because we do got about 30 minutes left, maybe. Now, the key takeaway here is that choosing a jurisdiction isn't about finding the most secret place in it. It's about finding the best regulatory fit for your specific needs. You're also trying to make sure that you're prepared for your risk tolerance and any citizenship issues that you're trying to accomplish. Because, like I said, if you're trying to do digital nomads, you want to have $20,000 in Philippines, but you want to have $75,000 in like South Korea or Japan. And $75,000 worth of income in another country is still taxable income in the United States. And if you're generating that $75,000 in the United States, it is taxable in the United States, even if it's wire transferred to Japan after you make it. So you got to make sure that you cover all your bases. So we've been through the history, the benefits, the risks, and the location. It's time to bring this home. Who should actually be using this? First, there is the high net worth individuals and global corporations. This is their traditional user position. For them, offshore finance is a sophisticated tool for legally preserving and growing substantial wealth. They use it for high-level asset protection, estate planning, and optimizing their tax exposure on global investments. They work with teams of lawyers and tax advisors to build fully compliant structures. So this isn't about cheating the system. It's about using the system to benefit you. Second, the user profile that's changing the game. The digital nomad, expat, and online freelancer, this group isn't driven by tax schemes or secrecy. Their main motivation is pure convenience and efficiency. They earn in dollars, spend in euros, and live in a country that uses Thai baht. For them, a fintech or EMI account based in Europe is a lifeline. It lets them get paid by international clients without losing a huge chunk of fees and run their small global business from a laptop, which this fintech opportunity benefits you as well because, like I said, if it's going to your trust in a tax-free country and then it's coming from that country into the country that you're going into, if the EMI account is able to transfer pesos or whatever like that from like the Caribbean to baht in the Philippines, and let's say you leave from the Philippines and decide to go to South Korea for a little bit, your EMI account will be able to allow you to make purchases in South Korea without having to go through all of the extra effort to change your currency over. Because enough money for your monthly expenditures is going into this EMI account to cover what you plan on spending for the month outside of unexpected emergencies. It's not necessarily holding $500,000 that could potentially be laundered from your cash out account. Completely different. Third, and perhaps the most critical, the citizen of an unstable country. For someone living in a nation with hyperinflation, political turmoil, or the threat of capital controls, offshore banking isn't a luxury. It is a defense necessity. So imagine watching your life savings lost where you lose 50% of its value in 1 year's time. For this person, legally opening an account in a stable country and holding a hard currency like the US dollar or Swiss franc is a way to protect their family's future from the current local political powers. It's a financial lifeboat, not a loophole. So, if those people are the people it is for, who is it emphatically not for? It's not for the average person with a stable job, living and working in a stable country with no real international financial life, where they barely live from paycheck to paycheck. If everything you're doing financially happens within the borders of the country that you live in, the immense complexity, cost, and compliance burdens of offshore banking will crush any potential benefit. If you don't own a passport or have plans to live, work, or invest in other countries, you absolutely do not need this. Build a solid financial foundation at your house first. Like I said before, use a brokerage account. Use the stocks going across the bottom of the screen, going across the top of the screen if you're looking at me from the vertical form. Build yourself a couple $1 million worth of assets in your brokerage account, and then start building real estate investment companies, foreign domestic companies in other countries, and start buying properties in other countries, and then start building these offshore bank accounts in other countries where you're actually establishing a trust or a business in other countries that is going to be paid for by the profits from your portfolio. Build it up at home and then take the profits and take it with you somewhere else. So, back to our original question. Is offshore banking a secret scam or a legitimate tool? The answer is you can see both. It is a chameleon. The same system can be used by criminals to launder money or by a refugee to protect their life savings. It has evolved from a shadowy world of secrecy into a complex, regulated tool for globalization and protection. The difference between the scam and the strategy boils down to two things: intent and compliance. Are you trying to hide your money or are you trying to legally organize and protect it? Are you evading your responsibility or are you transparently reporting everything according to the laws in the countries that you're operating? The world of offshore finance is no longer a secret club for the super rich. The digital revolution has opened its doors, but it is not a magic bullet. It is a sharp, complicated tool, and using it without proper guidance can cause serious injury. So tonight's show is for educational purposes only, and it is not going to be any type of financial, legal, or tax advice. The laws are incredibly clear and they're very complex, and they change based on your citizenship and your residence everywhere you go. So before ever considering to make moves like this, the first step you must do is to collect all of the information that you are expecting to need to be successful. Consolidate it all and then contact and consult with qualified cross-border professionals who understand the rules that apply to you. So, if this has helped demystify the world of offshore finance, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications because we break down complex global tactics and we cover top topics like this every single day, every week. And your support helps us make them keep coming for those individuals who need that aha moment so that they can start looking into other things. Because I always tell you guys, as soon as I give you a topic you don't know anything about, after you ask me, you ask the Google lady. So once you go and ask the Google lady and find out what's going on, you take that information and then you take it to a professional and verify the information that you're getting. Oh, and like Steven said, join the membership because I have more details being dumped into the membership just about on a daily basis. I have transcripts coming down. I've got stock information coming down. I've got, and it's all heads up information. I'm not necessarily giving you straightforward financial advice, legal advice, or tax advice. I'm telling you, hey, if you do research on this, you'll benefit from it. You see these stocks going across the screen? If you were to look at these stocks that are going across the screen and you were like, oh man, let me look at this stock, let me look at that stock. Damn, that stock is cheap. Damn, that stock's paying out a lot of dividends. He wasn't lying. Let me think about investing into that. You will find yourself in a better position because I found these. I looked for them, I found them, I'm watching them. They're still low, they're still affordable, they're still putting out reasonable dividends, and these are all dividend paying stocks. I think one of them, I think it was either Main Street. I think it was Main Street, but I have to go back and double check. Again, doing research. But one of them went from being a monthly dividend payer to a quarterly dividend payer. And when that transition shifted, a certain quantity of money every quarter, well, instead of getting paid a certain quantity of money every month, they're getting a different quantity of money every quarter, but they're still averaging out to be the same quantity of money. But now instead of getting paid 12 times a year, you're now only getting paid 4. So these transitions occur. And if you're watching a show from like 6 months ago, certain things have changed from the day that that show aired, but the facts are still the same. Is that this process can work if you do your research and then follow up as a knowledgeable person. All of the extra information that goes into the membership teaches you guys what to look for and where to look for it. And the benefit from it is now you've got at least 80 to 90% of the information that you need to be successful. And the last 10 to 20% that you need is to verify with a financial professional that you covered all of your bases, that you didn't leave anything out, and then execute it. And that is the biggest profit from jumping into the membership is because that what $3 a month for the cheapest membership that we got going on right now that you're paying for 30 days a month worth of man, there's so much facts going on here that you can consolidate all of those facts and then take some of that stuff and go to certain places and be like, hey, I've got this. This is what I'm trying to do. How much further do I have to go? You can cover that in an hour where you spent the last 6 months putting this information together. Then you go to the financial advisor and you put in the finishing touches. You go to the lawyer and you put in the finishing touches for whatever field that you're getting a lawyer in, and you put in the finishing touches. That 1 hour for $100 to $350 is more worth it to you in savings than going to the lawyer with no idea what you need and then brainstorming with the lawyer for 5 hours about what you want. And then the lawyer is going to spend 20 minutes to hand you something that is exactly what he's given to most of his clients once they explain enough information about what they're trying to do. The details is going to be the only thing that is going to condition your legal document different from somebody else. But the method is still the same. So you can save so much money just taking the information that I give you. So my advice, do research on the information I give you. Take the information that I give you, consolidate it into your plan of action, and then verify your plan of action with a financial advisor. A lot of things that you can do on your own. You're confident about the investment opportunities. You look at the Stash app, you see the Stash app function in there, you see all of the financial options that are there. You start looking at those stock options. You like those stock options. You start investing in those stock options. You start seeing dividends off of those stock options. You're satisfied with the dividends on those stock options. You ride the wave like I ride the wave. Right now, some of those stocks right now, Ellington and Prospect Capital, 19 point something percent right now. Right now, one of them is at $4.45 a share, giving up 8 cents a share, and the other one's at 278, giving up 5 cents a share. Orchid Island is almost $10 a share, getting off 12 cents a share. And that's in the midst of the war. I'm gonna call it a war. It's a political scrimmage using military forces. I'm gonna call it a war. It's a war in another country. And while they're fighting, I'm getting paid. So all I tell you guys, you dive into the membership, see what's going on in the membership, and then hit me up in the membership and figure out what you want to do, because the information that is here is common knowledge. I could have found all of this stuff on. I use a different search engine than everybody else, but I got that search engine from somebody in Taipei. So my search engine, and I actually had it on the show a couple times. My search engine is different from Google, but it does pull information off of Google. So I'm able to find all of the information that I need and some, eliminating ads and sponsorship advertisement, and really get down to the core and the facts of what needs to be done. And then when I curate all of that information, utilizing AI programming, I have more structuralized facts and details than the average person. And 9 times out of 10, there's some situations where even when Michael's here on the show, there are some facts that come in that he can't even find a lot of the times. And then when he does find it, he's like, oh, yep, exactly what you're talking about. It's right there, which is why he can tell you that, yes, I know exactly what I'm talking about. And then when I piece it all together from like 20 or 30 different shows that I've covered, like, whoa, I didn't know I could do this with my life. Shows of how to make changes and how to make better decisions and how to look into better options that come together for how to structure a plan that is better for you. It's better than being a life coach, because I'm not just going to tell you fix your life and stop fucking up. I'm going to show you, hey, in case you were wondering, there's a financial opportunity over here. And if you go take a look at it, you might benefit. It's up to you to go look, because I know that the average person watching the show right now, if somebody told you that they were giving out free Jordans at the local mall, you would go to the local mall to see if they were Jordans. I know that the average person that's watching the show right now, that 9 times if they said, hey, that they were giving out free food at a certain location in your neighborhood that's reasonably close to you, that you would probably get up and go out there and go see what that's about. If they said they were giving out some free Boston Market or some shit like that, if Dunkin' Donuts was doing a free donut day, if McDonald's had free value meals for 48 hours and you found out about it, you'll be going over there trying to see what's going on. So if I'm telling you that there's different ways that you can make money, save money, and invest money so that you don't have as much conflict in your life, I don't understand why you wouldn't go look into it and see what it's about. I'm not telling you to spend money. I'm not telling you give me all your money and you will be better. I'm telling you do your research, make different decisions, and those different outcomes will be beneficial to you. That's the only guarantee, is that you're going to benefit from better decisions. And when you look at the information I give you, like, I didn't know that, but I could definitely benefit from that. Start taking action on that. Like, for example, I told y'all at the top of the show how I just been telling somebody who smokes 3 times a day. They smoke Virginia Slims like $13, $14 a pack. 3 packs a day, almost $45 a day. You're looking at almost $15,300 a year that person would be spending on just smoking. Over the course of 10 years, that's over $150,000 plus interest is with these stocks at like 19 and 18%. These stocks at 15% would put that amount at like almost $400,000. But at these stocks at 18 and 19%, if you rode that for 10 years with these percentage rates, you're likely to see upward of $500,000 just by putting that $15,000 a year into a brokerage account instead of wasting it on smoking. You improve your health and you improve your wealth. Certain situations like that, it's like even after taxes, you still made almost a $500,000. And that quantity of money will be paying upward of $4,600 a month back in dividends at the same 15 and 19% interest rate, which means that if you was putting $1,500 a month in it for 10 years, and now you're getting back out of it $4,600 a month after 10 years. You've officially quadrupled your play money, which means ultimately your principal income can be replaced. You took your play money and flipped it 4 times over, and now your play money has become your primary source of income. You can quit your job now. And that's 10 years doing it by yourself. How would you have felt if you found a partner where the two of y'all could do the same thing and put away 3 grand a month, which is upward of uh uh there it is. So what if you were in a situation where you had 3 grand a month, upward of $36,000 that y'all were putting away together, where each person is putting up 1,500, and y'all just stacked y'all money. Y'all would have in 10 years $1 million. And if you're still getting that 15 to 18%, y'all are getting $150,000 a year now off of that 15+% off that $1 million in 10 years, where honest to God, you would be walking away with more than $10,000 a month. So if each one of y'all together was putting away 1,500 a month together, and y'all put that into the same location and just kept stacking on that money together for 10 years, you would see 5 years in you could quit your job. Most relationships don't last 2 years, but if y'all put 3 grand a month away into a brokerage account for 5 years, you would see more money coming back than y'all are putting up. Y'all kept riding away for 10 years. You'd be like, fuck, we can both quit our jobs in 10 years. You don't got to do a whole 20-year career in a marriage. You do the 20-year career in a marriage so that you can double, quadruple the quantity of money you need, so that you can go from living two people on one income to having two people living on 75%. So if y'all was doing this on a $40,000 a year income, y'all can up it to a $75,000 or $80,000 a year income and still have another $80,000 extra that can reinvest some back into the brokerage account to offset inflation and still have money to travel. That's the whole reason why I tell y'all all of this stuff. And if y'all put the money together, y'all do it. Get it, grab a calculator. Do the compound interest formula. Put it into Google. Do the compound interest formula. Google will do the compound interest formula for you. Do it with an average 14%. Do it with an average 10%. And see what happens. See the fallout. Be like, damn. And after it gives you that final number, ask Google, if I did generate $400,000 over the course of 10 years at that $400,000 rate, what would be my monthly income at 15% interest? It's going to tell you 4,600, 4,700. If that's what the hell you make right now, or you make less than that, bro, $1,500 a month could get you there. So $1,500 worth of bullshit, because you can find $1,500 worth of stuff that you don't waste it on: cigarettes, beer, subscriptions, gifts, first dates, 51st dates, and you'd be like, shit, all that money I'm throwing away, I could just put that into a brokerage account. And yeah, life hurts. And that's one of the reasons why I tell you 20 years. The 20-year plan factors into the decisions that you make when you have an emergency. You got to replace your car. You have to repair your house that you own. You have to fix the yard or whatever the case may be. You got a health issue you got to cover. You might have would have made it to $1 million in 10 years, but 6 years in, a financial catastrophe happened. You had to take 30 grand that you actually have access to put down on something instead of having to borrow money from somebody. You just had to pull money out of your brokerage account and cover that. These are the things that build you for success. Now, if you do everything correctly and you set everything up, you find the value in building up a trust. You start by building a revocable trust and put as much stuff into the revocable trust as you can. And a revocable trust means that you can modify it for the entirety of your life. So you can put all of the details in there that you think are relevant right now today. And every 3 months, every 6 months, you can go back in there, reevaluate your life, and see how much extra stuff you want to add to that trust. As long as you're alive, the trust can be changed. When you die, whoever controls the trust after you got to use it the way it is now. So if you have two decisions, one, how do I want to use it? And two, how do I want the people behind me to use it? Once you set those terms and conditions, when you die, it becomes unchangeable. And now the people that come behind you have to do it. So if you decide to say, well, I'm going to fix it, this trust can be used by any family member that puts themselves on a life insurance policy that they pay for and make the beneficiary the trust that they're getting money from. If someone dies, all of that money goes into the trust. And you can be specific about the value of the trust. I mean, the value of the insurance policy. You can say $500,000 insurance policy. You can say $1 million insurance policy. And whatever that damn payment is, if it's $500 a month, that's what they got to pay. But if they are a beneficiary of a trust that's paying them $2,000 a month, they can take $500 out of what they're getting from the trust, put it on the insurance policy, and pocket the 1,500. But in doing so, every living person benefiting from the trust has an insurance policy, and whoever dies puts money into the trust. And then the trustee is instructed to take the money out of that goes into the trust, invest it into a high interest investment account that generates more revenue than needed, so that you have extra money after taxes to pay the beneficiaries after maintaining all the properties and maintenance and everything, and giving the percentage to the trustee. That's how you build a self-sufficient situation like the Rockefellers. Then if your family members need to borrow money and you want your trust account to be the kind of trust account that is capable of lending money, then your trust account can start operating. If you have it in the terms and conditions of the trust account, that you can have certain parties operate like a bank. Like, hey, you can borrow money against the trust based on X number of dollars of how much you're entitled to out of the trust. And then the trust will no longer give you money and just take that money out of the trust distribution until what you owe the trust is paid off at whatever interest rate. So what say you're allowed to borrow $100,000 from the trust. All right. Well, if the trust is paying you $5,000 a month and you're paying 10%, 5%, 8% back to the trust, well, you got the 100 grand. You don't got to give it back. The trust is just not going to pay you until it pays itself back the 100 grand out of your portion of what you were supposed to be getting. If you have that verbiage in there, people can borrow money and then the trust just don't give them shit until the trust recoups its capital off of you. And the trust itself can protect all of the people in the trust. It can prevent people from having to get all these credit hits to borrow money to get a car, borrow money to get a house, borrow money to fix the house, borrow money to pay for college, borrow money to bail somebody out of jail. You don't got to go to banks and fuck up your credit score to ask for some money, because you could go to the trust if the trust got money in it. So find value into a trust. And then when you find the value of the trust, you invest in the trust. And when you invest in the trust, you set the terms and conditions of the trust. When you set the terms and conditions of the trust, now the trust benefits you however you plan on using it, and everybody else that plans on using it after you. And some people might come behind you and think that you're a fucking genius because the stuff that you set up in that trust would set 5 generations down the line up for life. Yeah, you're not going to benefit from being first generation wealth. But if your goal is to build a legacy and your goal is for your legacy not to suffer, you could find yourself as a beneficiary of your trust, where your trust pays for your life insurance policy so that when you pass, your $1 million policy gets the ball rolling for your kids. You can find that when your ex baby mama or somebody passed, that benefits your kids. When you find that certain things are set up in certain ways where you do it, your grandparents do it, then when your kids get in there and your kids get in there and your kids husbands and wives gets in there, everybody got something. You're like, damn, I don't have to try because the old folks before me did it. Now everybody can take this information and utilize it to make themselves financially successful, but they just have to apply themselves. So the next time that you see headlines about offshore bank accounts, you won't just see a villain or a genius. You'll see a complex and powerful tool, and you'll know the right questions to ask. And that's why I give y'all all of this information, to know what questions to ask, right? You'll know that the story is never just about where the money is, but why the money is there. And that's the biggest concern about legitimate offshore and international banking. Now, I'm going to start by saying, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. Fellas, I told y'all before, I'm going to tell you again, I give y'all this information to help y'all become higher value men. All y'all have to do is find the things in your life that are inside of your control. You want to focus on the things that are inside of your control, the things that you can change, the things that you don't like, and change those, improve your life, then navigate around the things that are outside of your control. It is easier for you to navigate what is beyond your control once you have taken control over the things that you have control over. Because a lot of times just saying it is what it is and saying fuck it allows you, through your negligence, to take action, to suffer more than what you would have had you done something. It's like having your guard down during a fight when you could have blocked. It's like allowing yourself to get into that crash instead of hitting the brakes. It's like letting the power get cut off on that final notice instead of paying a bill. Not taking action sometimes is worse than taking action. So find out what needs to be done. Find out how it needs to be done. Find out how you can be involved in that. And then proactively do what it takes to get there. Then navigate around the things that are outside of your control. I can't change what ICE does, but I can change how they talk to me. I can change when they talk to me by not being out there. I can change where they talk to me by not going where I know they're going to be at or where I think they're going to be at. You understand? We used to not go into crime-ridden neighborhoods because we knew that crime happened all the time over there. So to prevent from being caught up in crime, we just didn't go where we knew the crime was. A lot of us don't go to certain nightclubs because those nightclubs have bar fights and get shot up. We know that these clubs are dangerous because of the participants in the club. So we choose not to go there to avoid that conflict. Simply making a proactive, conscious choice for your success prevents your failure. Now, ladies, while this is a male-driven podcast from the male's perspective, you too can take this information and make yourselves higher value women. You have to figure out where you want to be at in 20 years. And it is important for you ladies to figure out where you want to be at in 20 years, because reverse engineering where you want to be at allows for you to start working on your day-by-day operation and then paying attention to the man that's next to you to see what his mindset is like. Because if he can blend into your 20-year plan, now you have a partner in life. Instead of just dating these guys because they're spending a bunch of money, or dating a guy because he's cute, or dating a guy because the sex is good, or dating a guy because you got pregnant by him. Start talking to the men and finding out if their mentality messes with where you hope to find yourself at in 10, 20, 30 years. Because if he's about what's happening tonight, one night stand, hit it and quit it, this, that, and the third, he's not about the 20-year plan. He's not a long haul person. If you're not paying attention to the long haul person, then you're not going to find the right person. So with that being said, I want to thank you guys for coming to this and that. I appreciate y'all dealing with the internet fluctuations. We got a storm going on right now, so I know the internet about to kick out on us. So we managed it. We managed it through all the rough times. We managed it, but things are going to get better. I want to let y'all know I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I will see you guys tomorrow night. And I'm going to be putting up tomorrow night's show, probably Spain, probably a country close to Spain. But I'm going to be putting up tomorrow night's show later tonight, early tomorrow, so that y'all will see Wednesday's show, because we're live 7 nights a week. So thank you guys, and I'll see you again.
Higher ground! That's my personal command. I'm not mounted on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never yield.